Good afternoon. If you live, we live. This is the Chicken Box where we get live. We speak our truth. We eat some chicken if we like chicken. And we talk about some things that we are dealing with right now in real time. If this is your first time, we're broadcasting from the Afro American newspaper. I'm in a remote location. For those who know me, for those who don't know me, I'm Kevin Impeccable Peck, your host, my co-host. I don't know where they are, but they coming. They said they coming, and so when they pop up, I'm gonna put them in. Thank you. We're gonna today. Let's get to it. In some parts of the world, school has started. In Atlanta, it started today. In Texas, I think it's starting next week. In Baltimore, I don't know when it, but we'll find out when it starts. But we're doing Black people versus teachers. We heard last week from the students, like, what we're going to do. The parents, what are they going to do? And now we're going to hear from the teachers. How are they feeling as they approach this 2021 season? I have some friends of mine that I'm going to invite onto the line. But if this is your first time and we popped up on your screen, we are broadcasting on the Afro American newspapers Facebook page, over 129 years of informing, inspiring, and educating our people, African Americans, Black people all around the world. So I'll say good morning on the West Coast, good afternoon on the East Coast, and good night or good evening somewhere in Africa. Anyway, why'd I pick Africa? But it's evening in Africa. Y'all know it's evening in Africa. Let's see who we got hanging out with us. Feel free to share it. It's a little arrow that goes like this. I represent the Gen Xers. For all you Gen Xers out there, typically Dr. Draper is the boomers and Misha Green handles the millennial. So I'm going to introduce our guests today so we can get the conversation started. Alexis Bond, welcome to the Chicken Box. I know you know what Chicken Box is. You're from Baltimore.
I do. Thank you so much. Salt, pepper, and ketchup all day. A little bit of hot sauce.
All day. Are you with a half and half, or you don't do the half and half?
Tea only. Tea only.
Tea only. So you're from Baltimore, Alexis?
I am. I was born and raised here in Baltimore. All my formal education here, from elementary school to the universities here in Baltimore.
So if you're not from Baltimore, you're identified by the school you go. So what high school did you go to, Alexis?
I went to the Baltimore School for the Arts. BSA all day. Boom, just like that.
You just can't get in that. That's not like an easy place that you can go. That's not a zone school. Tell some people who might not know really what the School of the Arts is, kind of what that really is.
The School for the Arts is a school for performing and visual arts. We have dance, which I was a dance major. We have vocal and instrumental music. We have drama. We have theater tech. And they may have some other programs since I've left. Class of 95, stand up. Okay. So a typical day, we get there early and leave late. I was able to dance for at least 4 hours a day. And then in the afternoon, I would have my academics. So it was strong on academics and strong in the arts. That's the life of a School for the Arts alum.
Man, that sounded really, really fun that you got to do something you love for 4 years. Like when is school going to be like that for everybody? You know what I mean?
It should be. It should be. I'm not saying that it was all fun, because it wasn't all fun and games, because they develop you to be a professional. So it's a lot of discipline, especially when you get to that level, that high school level. But looking back, it was an experience that I will never forget, and I'll never take for granted at all.
We're going to get into what you're doing currently in a little while, but we're going to bring our next guest, Shea McLean.
Hello.
Good. When we start talking about like teachers, education, information, empowerment, we always have internet problems. I'm like, what's up with that? Shea McLean, welcome to the Chicken Box.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good friend of the family. Been in education and teaching for the year. Where did you go to high school, matter of fact?
So I was a private school girl. I went to Baltimore Lutheran High School in Towson, which has now been renamed to Concordia Prep now. So that's where I went to school.
All these years I've known you, and I did not know what high school you went to. But welcome to the Chicken Box. How are you? Well, you know what the Chicken Box is, of course.
Yep.
Is anybody getting hungry?
Put it in. I am.
It's lunchtime and you getting hungry. Because some everybody don't like fried chicken, but it makes you smile. Before the pandemic, we were going to come and have serious discussions and have people bring their best fried chicken to the studio or their recipe. And, you know, hopefully, if some folks would help us corral this pandemic, man, if I get one more note, can y'all hear those notifications?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Somebody is really
Right.
dinging you. They need your attention.
I need do not disturb on the computer. But I know parents, you probably and teachers, you had all kind of dings last year as we went through a year like none other. As we prepare for school this year, what are the plans? And you know what? I haven't even. Let me get your expertise together first. Alexis, I'm gonna come back to you. What are you currently doing now in the school system? Before we get into the questions, what's your role?
Is that Shea or for me?
For you, are you still teaching? That's for you, Alexis. Hello.
See, we talk about those technical issues now. You know what we dealt with all year
There
long.
you go. Part of the issue.
You back? Okay. See, this is what education was like when you had to teach, and it would just freeze in the middle of the thought, or the kids might not have strong internet. Anyway,
yes.
Alexis.
Okay.
I got you back. Go ahead.
Okay, me. Currently, I work in the Office of Curriculum Instruction in Baltimore County. In this position, I actually coach teachers, and I also help with the development of curriculum. I stick with the middle school for the most part, but I have ventured out into the high school. So currently, that's what I'm doing.
All right. Welcome to the Chicken Bite. And Shea McLean.
Yeah, so I'm in Baltimore City Public Schools. I actually coach math teachers in my school, amongst other things, but that's my main role.
But you guys both have taught before.
Oh yes.
Absolutely.
Oh yes.
That's a prerequisite to get into the system. You have to have had some classroom experience.
Yes.
All right, we're all on the line. We got Vicky, we got Byron, we got Bonnie. Just chime in if you're from Baltimore City or DC, put in what high school. And if you're in another state or another part and y'all did the same thing, because everybody asks what high school you go to or went to in Baltimore. And I don't know if that judges a person or what that was, or I think it was just to find like some kind of common connection and common ground. And I also understand you ladies are both members of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated.
Yes, we are.
Well, shout out to all the Deltas. We got some fine people in education and all of the other Divine Nine out there too.
Yes.
Welcome to the Chicken Box. Okay, let's get into Black people versus teachers. How are we feeling, ladies, about this current school year? I mean, what are you feeling? Is it any news to share? Are our kids going? Is it going to be a hybrid situation? Fill us in.
Go ahead, Shay. You can start.
So there's no official news on all that's supposed to take place. So that news is forthcoming. When I know, you'll know. So So we don't.
How they doing this? I mean, how soon does school start in Baltimore?
So in Baltimore City, we begin on August 30th.
Okay, y'all have 30 days, so it's not like
Give or take.
And then giving you the news.
Yeah.
But is it a wait and see situation?
Well, I think that just right now, the information hasn't been given yet. That big meeting happens next week with leadership, so we'll know soon. Absolutely,
Alexis, what's going on in Baltimore County?
So school starts also in Baltimore County on August the 30th. We have our school district decided to do something unique. We have parents that want their students to be virtual students. So we have teachers that's just going to teach virtually, and parents have signed up for that. Mm-hmm. And then we also have the regular face-to-face interactions, and everybody starts on August the 30th. We worked all summer, all school year to prepare for this incoming school year because it's going to be unique and different with the blended approach. One group of students will be on virtually and the other group of students are face-to-face. So that's what we're doing, and it's in Baltimore County.
Now, what determines who goes where?
Parents.
Parents.
That's okay. who determine. Right now it's parents. Parents give the marching orders in Baltimore County. So parents decide what which education model fits their children the best and their family situation the best.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's actually the current plan in Baltimore City. Again, we're still waiting for the official word, but parents did have to sign children up to remain virtually, and that was a parent decision. There's an X number of spots for virtual learning, and that's going to be like a whole separate thing, kind of like a virtual school throughout the city. And so we're doing the same thing. We are preparing for in-person as well. But like I said, next week we'll be here and we will get the official word on, what the plan will be. Is it going to remain the same or is it going to be different, especially with COVID cases going up? So
thank you for tuning in. If you just tuned in, this is Black People versus Teachers. We have some of our fine used to be teachers, now educators, administrators.
Always teachers.
Always.
Once you're a teacher, is that a thing? Once you're a teacher, you always have the gift of teaching. You take it with you, whether you want to use it or not, huh? You find yourself using it. I think we have my millennial, my boomer co-host just showed up. Dr. Draper, how are you?
Hi, Dr. Draper. Good
Hello,
morning.
everyone.
Once a teacher, always a teacher. We just found out we're in full swing. We now have 3 Delta girls or women or ladies who have joined the Chicken Box, and coincidentally, all are teachers. So welcome, Dr. Draper.
Thank you.
To the box. Cheryl Brown says she's available to virtually substitute. Okay. I never even thought about that. That's a good point. That's
interesting.
You have virtual substitutes now. Man, that might be a cool job. Because these teachers need a break, y'all. Anyway, let me be, before we get started, back to thank you guys, because it is sometimes a thankless job, and you go beyond your way to pour into a lot of people and to bring a lot of light in darkness. So thank you, all the teachers who do what you do and really love what you do, not the ones that's just trying to get a check and ready to kick a student through the locker every day. But they can push you there. We know they can get you there, but take the high road, y'all. Take the high road. Dr. Draper, anything? Come on in. Just jump full in the conversation.
Jump right in the conversation. All right. So, Kevin, you say I'm a teacher, but let me say hats off to teachers in 2021. I taught public school a long time ago. Sometimes once a teacher, always a teacher. But I really want to ask these ladies to just weigh in a little bit about what it's been like over this last year during the pandemic. Have you all already talked about that? I know I'm getting on the back.
We didn't get into their mental and how they were feeling yet. We've just established who they were, what they were doing, what they were waiting for. In Baltimore County, the parents kind of, swing the power and tell the school what to do. And I don't know what's happening in the city. I guess they need to be told what to do sometime. But how are you ladies feeling? Was the last question.
Well, I'll start with that. And thank you for the question, Dr. Draper. If you're from Baltimore County, you will understand what I'm about to say. As a Black female, I'm in my thinking and acting space when it comes to where I am personally in education. We have the potential to transform education right now. And we cannot be afraid of the transformation that is to come. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and it's not for the faint of heart. And our children cannot afford faint of heart teachers. That's why in this moment, if you can, as an educator, make sure you're filling your cup. Make sure you fill your cup. Take your days at the beach, your favorite spot to hang out at. But when we come back into the place of teaching and learning, we need to be we need to be filled. We need to be filled.
That reminded me, thank you, Alexis, that really reminded me, we talked about we're in the middle of, not the middle of, we're at the end of the Olympics that started last week, or almost at the end of the Olympics, and talking about Olympians who needed Simone Biles, certainly Naomi Osaka, needed to have some mental health time because of the pressure of the game. Now, teaching is not a game, but you certainly are on all the time
All the
and
time.
expected to be on all the time.
All the time.
I saw a note that a parent wrote to a teacher and said, "You said my child was a pleasure to teach. You lied. I've had him home with me for like 5 months." and you lie. And so you can't afford to have a bad day.
Mm-mm.
So I don't, so, yeah, go to the beach. Share, what do you say?
So I agree. Mental health is definitely important. This year was like no other year. Like what, these 16 months, I don't think we ever thought that we would be teaching virtually. Be mandated to teach virtually. We have had virtual teachers for years, of course, but for everybody to have to do it was definitely a shift. And so we had to adjust quickly. And be ready for our children. And like Alexis said, teaching is not for the faint of heart. You have to have a passion to teach. And, I know a lot of teachers, especially some of our veteran teachers said, this was enough for them. After doing this year, they said, okay, give me my retirement papers. I'm ready to go. And I understand. It really pushed a lot of us. It was important to step away from the computers because being in front of them, it was just so easy to say, okay, well, I'll just kind of stay on. But you really needed to take a step back, walk away. And, just being at the computer all day, I noticed even, for myself that I wasn't really getting up as much as I would if I was in the building, walking around, getting my exercise. And so that's important. And so at lunchtime, I would take a break. I would go for a bike ride, and that would be my lunch break, and then come back to the computer. So it was important to get fresh air, get some vitamin D from the sun, and just do something else not related to school.
I hear that. Shit, so I'm going on a bike. I don't know how many of y'all riding a bike if you tuned in. This is Black People versus Teachers. Our kids, our teachers, our educators, our administrators are getting geared up for this 2021 school year. Will it be different? Will it be the same? Or the kids want, what are the kids telling you guys? What are you hearing as teachers?
They want to be back in school. I know a lot of kids said, like, I see them, as because I've been at my school during the summer. I see the children. Am I coming back to school? Yes, we'll see you on August 30th. So, children really want to be back. They're excited to be back. Children that we've had in our summer programming, some of them weren't there for the spring when we went back to school, and just to see them, I know some of them were having some issues, at home, but just to see them, to see their smiles and see them interacting with their peers, we need that social aspect, and especially children, they need to socialize with their friends. And so I'm happy that they're back. In Baltimore City, we're still, using following the mask mandate, so we're still able to have those social spaces, and so I think it's been really good for our students.
Absolutely. It's a lot of stereotypes out there about teachers on these I was going to say on these streets, but on these digital streets. And our millennial co-host who had to do something with her mother, I think, take her to a doctor appointment. Misha, we miss you. She left the list though for us.
Oh, thanks, Misha.
Of these are just general stereotypes and not necessarily views of the Afro. If you tuned in, this is Black People versus Teachers, but here are some of the stereotypes out on these digital and physical streets. George Bernard Shaw's famous quote, "He who can does, he who cannot teaches." Okay.
Ooh.
Teachers are parents for children when they're not at home. Teachers are not responsible for being parents. Teachers are only in it for a paycheck. These are stereotypes. Teachers work selflessly since they don't make much money. Teachers love students. Teachers are overworked. Teachers have it easy because they work for 10 months and then they get a break during the summer. Teaching is a hard job. Public school teachers have to listen to the parents since the tax money pays their tuition. Woo. Parents gained a lot of respect for teachers during the pandemic. I see. I don't think that's a stereotype. Black teachers are important for representation, and Black teachers are important for Black success. Thanks, Misha, for that list. I would really prefer you to read it next time. But those are things that have you guys heard? Can you when you were weighing it? Did any of those jump out at you?
The first one really I had to clutch my pearls. Because if we didn't have teachers, we couldn't have any other profession. That's the first thing. And something I always believe in, teaching is hard work. It's hard work. It's so much professional development to help teachers with their skill, right? But if you don't have the will, and to me, a lot of the work that educators do, it is the hard work. With all of the ills we have in our community, and I'm talking about the Black community, it takes teachers to come and fill some of those voids, because sometimes the schoolhouse is the only place a child may hear somebody say, "I love you," or "I care about you." You know better than that. Create those boundaries and those expectations for our students. And it is, we are the pay sucks. The pay sucks. So we can never be in it for money, because it truly sucks. However, I have never been without anything. I have never been without anything. Anything I ever wanted, God has provided, because again, this is service work, and He never leave His children without. So that's just my take on.
Hard work. If that didn't get you, and you have kids, or you've been in school, or you've been taught, somebody along the way said one thing that turned you in a different direction, that changed your life, that made you see yourself in a different light. Shea, any of those on that list that jumped out at you?
So I do agree that parents have had to do a lot this time, and that they should really appreciate their child's teachers. I think that what was the second to last one on the list that you've read, Kevin?
Black teachers are important for representation.
Yes, yeah, that's it. Yes, yes, I think it's important for our children in our community and our culture to see Black faces. Like Alexis said, we see them doing something wrong, and we can say to them or give them that side eye, like, "Come on, you know that's not what your teacher told you to do." I think that that's important. I think that just as a people, we thrive on community. So having that space, to still keep that same kind of culture in school buildings is good for children. We know that they get into things at school, but all the kids in my building can tell you, I might have been in trouble with Miss McCain yesterday, but I know today when I get there, she has a hug for me. We do the air hugs right now because of COVID. But they know I genuinely love them. And I know that they can do what they're supposed to do. So I think that that's very important.
Absolutely. Shea, were you a language teacher?
So I taught everything. I'm actually a reading specialist.
Right, because you make me have to check how I say important. I gotta get myself together. Dr. Draper, jump in.
I was saying another stereotype that I've heard that was not on the list is that I think we've already debunked this stereotype, is that anybody can teach.
Oh no!
Oh, well, y'all jump right on that one. Say a little more.
You have to be passionate. This is not just for a paycheck. If your heart is not in it, like Alexa said, children will wear you out. Like, you have to be passionate. You have to know what you're doing in that classroom. You have to be able to manage those students, because if not, they will run all over top of you. And kids know when you're there because you're about them, and when you're there just to collect a check. Trust me, they know.
Right. They're going to put
and then you all have lots of preparation. In your introduction, did you all tell us about your preparation? Tell us about how you prepared to teach. I mean, what are your credentials? What did you have to do to even get where you are now? What kind of, and I don't know, I'm not going to ask you, you're still paying student loans back, but what did you have to do?
undergrad, many courses of undergrad work. And we both have our masters, so you had to go to school again to get your master's degree. Some people have decided to go back and get another master's, so you have to go back and do more classes. And just because we have our certification, you have to renew that certification every 5 years. So teachers have to make sure that they are going back to school to make sure they're taking those courses to stay up to date on, the latest teaching trends and strategies. And so they can renew their certification after 5 years. So this is not just something we get it and we say, okay, I have it, I'm good to go. We have to keep up with what's going on in the education world.
Okay, so my path was different. I went to Coppin. I wanted to be an attorney or a social studies teacher. I've always wanted to be either an attorney or a social studies teacher.
Really?
Yes.
I always want to be social studies.
I did. I love social studies. That was my favorite classes from middle school to high school, social studies. But anywho, I went back to Notre Dame to get a master's in teaching, and that's where the education bug bit me. I was like, this is my time. And I also have, like Cher says, we often go back to get additional degrees. I have a degree in administration, a certificate in administration with a concentration in special education. I had part of my preparation is having strong leaders to work under. And I saw Eldon Thomas was my first principal. And it's just basic stuff that every educator should know. And she had these high expectations for her teachers. And working under her, it's like I could go anywhere. I had the confidence I could go anywhere and teach. And from that pool, I'm able to coach other teachers because it's just best practices. So thanks for the question, Dr. Draper.
So you all got your mindset together. It's been a lot of Dr. Draper since you're here.
I'm here.
Why don't we share the history between teachers and the Black community? Maybe something that you might have stumbled upon from the Afro archives or something.
Okay. Well, in full transparency, here's a little bit of Black teacher trivia. My paternal, a lot of people know us from the Afro, and the Afro will be 129 years old in a couple of days, really, maybe next week on the 13th. But you don't know about the paternal side of my particular family. My grandfather was the first Black superintendent of, what was called director then, of colored schools. And his name was Francis Marion Wood. And so education and educators run deep in my family. And so Dr. Wood was recruited, PhD out of Kentucky. He was recruited by Baltimore City to come and direct, as I said, colored schools. And so schools were segregated and separated, and teachers as well did not teach, in racially diverse schools. And so it was really, really important. At that time, you're talking about professional development. I heard my aunt, for whom a building at Coppin is named, talk about teachers had to wear white gloves, guys, when they went for. You all heard that story too.
Yes.
They wore when they did their student teaching. They wore white gloves. So I did not know my grandfather, but I heard a lot of stories about this tall, dark PhD from Kentucky that came and really had an interest in the professional development of teachers, because he understood that if teachers had really strong professional development and learned the things of the profession in such a way that they could impact young people's lives, then you would see a difference. So there wasn't any slack. I think sometimes teachers get a bad reputation as if you're just going in there. And there are some people who are there for a paycheck, and there are some people who are not as well prepared as you, but that's in any profession. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, teachers are on their game. So Kevin, does that answer your question?
Well, yes, it does. But, of course, Misha, who had prepared us a script, had your name was next. So anyway, I was.
Well, let me talk about that. So let me say a little bit about that. And so one thing about teachers in the African American community, this is where I was going with the Dr. Wood story.
But I like that story. I do like the story.
Okay. Well, that's history. That's Baltimore history. But during the enslavement of blacks, it was, all of us have heard, it was illegal for blacks to read or write,
What?
especially in the South. And so
Illegal.
African American
Illegal to
educators,
read.
illegals.
Mm.
And so African American teachers have always been key to the black community. And so black teachers who could read and write would teach others to read and write. And they would have secret schools. You know, we heard about an underground railroad. We don't hear a lot about the underground schools.
Mm.
And a lot of times the blacks who learned how to read and write were those who worked in the homes, right, of the slave owners. And then usually the lady of the house, the mistress, taught them to write and then read, and they taught one another. Now, this is a fact that Misha uncovered. Misha, we're lifting you up. We're thanking you for all the work that you did before this broadcast. That the black middle class preferred segregation and black teachers, and that's in the South. They said in the South, they really said, no, give us black teachers. But in the North, they were more pro-integrationists and wanted to mix the races in the schools. But of course, the laws were not in place until Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 that said separate but equal does not work. And so as the United States went further into the 21st century, Kevin's asking for history. Who said they like social studies? Social studies, that was you, Alexis, right? And so populations were made up of proportions of black students. And so students of color still represent the majority rather of students in your classrooms. Are you all seeing that in urban centers? But
Yes.
in a lot of urban centers across the country, no longer are black teachers in the majority.
Correct.
Yeah.
Are you all finding that in Baltimore County and Baltimore City as well? And so these programs, disproportionate, the Teach for America and the other programs, which are good, but they're not attracting as many black teachers as we once had in our schools. Just think about it. We've gone from 100% black teachers teaching black children to now the majority of our students are not taught by people who look like them. And I don't know about your schools, ladies, weigh in on this. How about the black men? Are there black men teachers? Or are they still at a very low minority?
Slim picking. And so to piggyback on your historical context, my grandmother actually graduated from Coppin when it was a teacher's college. So teaching is in my gene pool too. And one of the things that we need to contend with also, on one end, like we're not people of color, black people are not being sought after in those teacher prep programs like Teach for America. However, our HBCUs also, we're not producing educators. And I think it's a part of when students leave college, and they don't know what they want to do. And some other, in white culture, they'll go teach until they figure out what they want to do. And they realize, oh, education is my passion, and they stick with it, or they, do something else. Whereas our community, our kids, they're just like, no, I don't want to be a teacher. I can't deal with the kids. And they missing the opportunity, one, to serve their own people first. Because again, it's a service work, giving back to your own people. And the other piece they're missing is you're leaving college with a career. You're leaving college with some benefits and some money. Our culture, we can't afford to leave college poor. Student loan debt. We cannot afford to work for $15 an hour leaving college. So I don't think it's a twofold. Our HBCUs we have to do a better job with our educational programs, especially when they were founded on education.
Yeah, and I also think that, like, I look back to when I first started, I remember Coppin and Morgan, having those partnerships with Baltimore City public schools, where we would get, the student teachers that would come through the schools, to do their practicum experiences. And for those who practicum experiences are like they have like so many hours that they have to be in a classroom to do certain things. So if you're doing your practicum in like social studies, for example, then you would go and see a social studies teacher and help that teacher and teach, many lessons and things like that in the classroom. I know when I first started out, I think I'm going to year 18 or 19 now, that those programs were there. Like, those schools, were producing teachers. They still are, but I'm not sure if the partnerships are as strong as they once were. As I have gone through, my career, I see, we have more partnerships with like Loyola and Towson, and again,
Goucher.
Goucher, right? Thank you. That those schools are not going to produce the same type of teacher that like Morgan and Coppin would produce, and so I think that's like what's missing. And I think, like we said, it's important for our children to see representation. And, especially in my school is elementary middle. So in my school, we only have one male teacher, and he's in the middle school, which is good, for our middle school kids to see a male teacher. But it means that our kids matriculate from pre-K all the way through until they get to middle school, and then they finally see a male teacher in this role. And, it varies. Some of them may have Black teachers through those years and some may not. But we do definitely see that Black teachers are not as there aren't as many Black teachers as there once were. And I think that's very unfortunate, because this is a job. You definitely have to work hard. Like I said, it's servant work, but there's also rewards when you watch those children, learn how to read, and they were struggling all year, or they understand how to do their math facts now, and solve those math problems, which was a struggle, and that light bulb goes off. I live for the light bulb. And so I think that light bulbs happen in various contexts, whether it's academically, sometimes like mentally, we know some of our kids have struggled with like home issues, and then like they finally get it. And once, we're really able to tap into some of those issues that kids are like really facing, it helps them academically. And so we know that it's important for us to like really pour into our children. And I feel like when I go to school, I pour into them. Like, I'm exhausted by the end of the day, but I know that I've given it my 150%. I know that that's what they need to thrive. And so I feel like if people don't have that, or if they're disconnected from what we need in our culture, then they're not going to be able to give our babies their best, because they don't know. And so I think that, there's training now with how to help teachers that are not of color, help them to understand our culture, because you have to understand it if you're going to be in it for 8 hours a day. That's just a given.
Wow.
Okay, so, wow.
We have Larry chiming in, Marie. Hey, what's up, Marie? We've struck a chord. 4th grade, 100% Black school, and her daughter has yet to see a teacher of color. So, it'll be no empathy. It'll be the understanding will be different. The culture will sometimes be different. They'll ask stupid questions to your children and say probably some stupid things from time to time. And I'm using stupid lightly. But this is the Chicken Box, y'all. This is Black people versus teachers. We're dealing with 2021 coming up. It's going to be some hybrids in places. There's some parents who have emphatically said they're not sending their kids back to school yet until there's some type of 100% vaccine in the schools. We know 12 is the age limit now. We're praying that it goes lower soon. And that's still in the face. Amongst everything else that teachers and parents have become uncomfortable with. But the bright side, as Alexis said earlier, is this is a time that we can do something new and different. And, we've found that all kids don't learn the same way. Mm-hmm. Everybody is not going to, they're just not going to do it. But if we can come up with creative ways to engage and to transform lives, because basically you're taking them through a process of how to grow up, because 9 times out of 10, when you get out of that class, you don't use that in your everyday work. It just showed that you can move through. So I always wondered with that, you know what I mean? It's like you learn all these subjects and these classes, and it all gets back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. You know, those things those still the foundation?
It is. And do not let systems fool you. Don't let systems fool you. Our kids can read, they can write, and they can do arithmetic. I also want to piggyback and look at Mr. Mitchell's comment that the kids are out of control. Our kids are not out of control. They're not. Our kids need to be loved, and people will be so surprised when they go into schoolhouses and see the students. You know, for the most part, I've been blessed. I've never worked in an out of control environment because the adults in the building would not allow it. There are boundaries because they are kids. Something this pandemic has.
The internet got out of control. She'll be back with us after these messages because she was about to drop it. So
yeah, but I like her point where she was going. You know, a lot of times you hear about out of control young people, just like you hear about the crime and the shootings and all that. Those are the minority of the cases. There are young people who need their behavior modified. Let me just put it that way. And they come with a whole lot of issues. But Shea said it, Alexa said it. Some of these children you can love to life, even the ones that seem to be the hardest nut to crack. I know I taught a long time ago, but it wasn't that much difference. The ones that came in sometimes having trouble controlling their impulses. And I taught middle school, and they had a whole lot of impulses and a whole lot of hormones raging all at the same time. If you can get to that child's heart, and even if they have a learning challenge, right, or an emotional challenge, if you can get the right resources around most children, and I'm calling middle schools and high schoolers children as well, you can have a positive outcome. But let the professional educators of today weigh in. Share.
Welcome back, Alexis. We'll be doing our last quarter. You remember how the final fourth quarter of the year, like the teachers.
Right.
Well, this is the final fourth quarter of the Chicken Box. We could talk about this for life because of just our children and our education, our information. And if you just tuned in, this is the Afro-American newspaper. 129 years in 2 weeks of informing, inspiring, and educating, and not being controlled by anybody else's voice, y'all. But it's only because we have supported each other over 129 years. Mm-hmm. So if you have not gotten a subscription, go to afro.com. It's the red button. Red. Our logo's blue. You're gonna see
if you're from
Baltimore. Green on the mobile. She always says green, but I always think red because I'm passionate. So and I'm a Catholic. But anyway, get to that button, afro.com, and for less than 2 Uber Eats, help us continue to tell a message, because the other races, a few are not going to be as concerned about us sharing information that empowers us. Okay, I'm going to let Alexis get back to her point, but
and when Alexis gets back to her point, Alexis, when you do that, I want to also don't lose this, come to the fact that sometimes our children are disciplined differently.
Without a belt. No, I mean, go ahead.
No, they are disciplined differently.
Disproportionately. Yeah. And it goes back to who are the teachers in the classroom. You know, the way I see respect and disrespect, other cultures don't see it the same way. You know, so giving off that same energy, you know, so working on coaching teachers, especially when they're not of the same hue of our students, you know, no, you're not sending that child out of class. Have a conversation with them so you get to the root cause of why you're having conflict. And I was just saying, I'm not for sure how much you heard or you didn't hear, just that our kids are wonderful, y'all. Our babies are wonderful. And when the reason why I said this is hard work is because they need to know that you love them. So again, I've never worked in a schoolhouse where it's unruly, kids don't listen. They will listen. They will listen, and they love boundaries and structure. When they outside, of course, we all act the fool when we were outside. But
Right.
again, our community, it's called community. If you the elder and they acting the fool, say something to them. Say something, and it's how you say it to them. You say it out of love, not out of blatant disrespect, because they are human beings too. I got in trouble in school a couple of times for being disrespectful as a kid, so I kind of
Well,
understand.
that's a big one. Let's stop. That's y'all are in the school, right? Disrespect. I don't know about the other communities, but in the Black community, that's like high on the list to act, to get somebody to react, not even respond. Disrespect, when a person feels that they're disrespected, a lot of times they come completely out of their character, right? I mean, and do something that is Alexis frozen again, and do something that they normally wouldn't do because they felt disrespected. So then you get off of your game because you feel so disrespected about a lot of times of something somebody said, and then you take that action and you turn it into a reaction, and you end up in that 30 seconds of feeling disrespected doing something stupid that gets you kicked out of school, in jail, shot, hurt,
Right.
banked, bullied forever, or whatever else happens, all because you disrespected me. You know what I mean? So I ain't gonna be disrespected. And that goes into a whole. Do you find that starts a lot of things in school? A lot of the confrontation just because somebody felt disrespected?
Yes, absolutely. Because like I said, my school is elementary middle. So my middle schoolers already know that a lot of times that is the root of the situation. Even if kids are having issues with other teachers, or if they're having issues with their peers, is that somebody felt disrespected. So we have to talk about that and talk about
communication.
Communicate. Well, how did you feel disrespected? Could you have told that person that is how you felt before you decided to hit them, or before you decide to, say something that you shouldn't have said to the teacher? But again, having those conversations are important for children, because
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Children, even though they're big, they are children. Any person under 18 is a child, and so we have to understand that they need help processing their thoughts and their feelings. They can't do that by themselves. They need our assistance to do that in many cases. So we have to keep that in mind as we are trying to educate them as well.
We get into the hot grease, y'all, of the chicken box. We're about to drop it, so that this is where you get to speak your truth. This is about something that might have been on your chest. This is about something that nobody's watching this, but 600,000 people possibly. But anyway, this is where you speak your truth about the situation. I just wanted to say that kids can sometimes be really mean to each other, and they can say something to another kid who may have a learning disability, may learn differently than them, and they might say, "You don't know that's stupid," or whatever, whatever they're saying to that kid. And I happened to sit on a plane next to a person who was dealing with literacy, and he said most of the kids, people in jail, 70% of them were pretty much illiterate because at a young age their learning style was different. And rather than be embarrassed because they didn't know the answer, they're going to act up so they can get put out of class so that they don't have to be called on. So that's kind of, I'm on the box about that. And that we have to just figure out different styles. Because you could teach people about social media and teach counting and teach reading. You could teach all of those things in TikTok, you know what I mean? and how to set it up. And then that would be, and the kid that you thought couldn't learn anything, they are the master of everything. Mm-hmm. So, all right, who's on the box next? Jump up.
Okay, I'll jump on the box. I want to, first of all, I want to acknowledge Larry's comment. Yes, Larry, half the battle would be won if Black fathers were in our children's lives, but the reality of it is that too many of our Black fathers are not in their children's lives. But I do want to challenge Black men, whether it's your child or not, We need Black men to be in our children's lives. The other thing I want to say is that Black and brown people, which includes children, are not broken.
Nope.
They're not broken. They are not. They came into a broken system. And people can argue about whether or not that we're going to teach something called critical race theory. We better teach about racism and how to respond to it, and say to our young people, you are not broken. God made you in his image. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're perfect. And because what happens with the stereotypes is that young people absorb the fact that they're broken, that they're violent, that they're this, that they need IEPs, instructional, whatever that thing is, educational, instructional programs or help or whatever it is, that they have handicaps and deficits from the beginning. We have to start speaking to children that they are not broken. Systems are broken. Young people can learn, will learn. And personal testimony, when I did teach, I taught French and Spanish. And I figured that, and children were then put in classes based on so-called ability. And so my home class was 729, with 71 being the smartest, supposedly, and 729 being the slowest. Well, I figured if they could say MF, they could say Buenos Dias, and they did. And those children walked around that school and said, because they know that they've been labeled, and they said, we're not dumb, we take Spanish. And some people would say, no, you don't take Spanish. And we would say, oh, yes, they take Spanish. And they were proud of the fact that they could, that somebody believed in them enough to teach them Spanish. Now, I'm not saying they could do advanced Spanish, but neither could the young people in 701. So I'm off the box.
MFers, mothers and fathers. Good.
Right.
All right.
If you teach in public school, if you teach in public school, you hear all kinds of things, right?
Yes,
because young people,
absolutely,
young people bring what they hear at home, but they still are not broken.
Absolutely, because you can check your language at home, parents. They heard you. They come right to school and say the same exact thing. Alexis, you're on the box.
Sure. I'm just in awe. That's it. I'm in awe because again, we are at a place that we are transforming education. And I don't want our parents and our community to get discouraged, because I see the news just like everybody else. And I'm so thankful that the Afro is here to write our own narrative. That's what happens a lot of times. We allow other people to write our narrative, and it's not the narrative. And in education, it's the same way. It's some great educators out here that's doing some phenomenal work that you will never know. You will never see their faces, but know that they are in the trenches fighting for your kids. And we need you parents to fight with us. We're not against us. Don't fight against us. Fight with us, because we are a community. Everybody else, all other communities can work as individualists. That does not work for us. We are a communal people. Until we start working as a community, we will allow broken systems to dictate what education looks like for us, what healthcare looks like, what our economy looks like. We have to realize that we have to do this together and not separate.
Boom.
I'm off the box.
Boom. Together, not separate. And before you do, Shad, and we got to get that check to go up, y'all. They are underpaid. I heard you say it earlier. Do it for a labor of love, but these kids they want a labor of some money, right? So they don't want to do it because the money's not attached. Now the teacher should be the highest paid because they're impacting the most, and how we can transform how that happens, that needs to be in there too. Even if these corporations adopt a city or something, to where the pay can be better. But all right. I stepped on the corner of your box, Shay. I'm off.
All right. So on the box, I think mine is for teachers. If you are not passionate about this work, I want you to do a self-reflection. Like, if you can't say, okay, I feel that passion again, maybe move to a different grade, move to a different school. If that passion doesn't happen, then it may be time to do something else, because I feel like it is too critical for our students to have teachers that are half stepping. You have to bring your 100, like the kids say. You know, you have to make sure that you're in that classroom ready for those children. And if that's not for you, then find another profession. Because I love my babies, and I don't care if they're at my school, other schools. You know, I see brown babies, I just say they're my babies. So, you know, we want to make sure we're doing the best that we can for our babies in our community, and that the village mentality has to stay. We need to have everybody help. We have our community partners, we need our parents, and you know, let your administrators at your schools know if you don't feel comfortable in the school, talk to them, because their job is to make you feel comfortable and to make things happen so that you all feel a part of that school. And so I encourage parents to, you know, go ahead and have those conversations, because the school works for you, parents. And so it's important, you know, that you are part of that conversation as well.
And Shaya, just to piggyback, other communities know that the school works for them. Know that we just don't. We don't have that same voice, especially in Baltimore County. Just like their voices are being heard, where are my Black and brown parents? We have to organize, we have to strategize to fight for the needs of our students too. And we can't depend on anybody else to do it but us.
Parents, stop being lazy. I'm gonna say it. You get home, you burned out, you may have spent all of what you spent for whoever you're spending it for, whether it's your own business or you building somebody else's dream or another business, but you have to go into overdrive for your kids, or the street is going to go into overdrive for them. Somebody else on social media is going to be not whispering. They're going to be talking to your kids so loud that they can't hear you. They just going to hear the noise that they're saying. So it's time to go into overdrive. I heard the ladies, all the teachers out there say you got to go hard for your profession. God says wherever you are, whether you're sweeping the floor or teaching the future leaders, that you should do it with excellence. If you're not going to do it with excellence, don't do it. Because you're killing us. You're killing us with this subpar mentality, with not bringing your A game to everything that you signed up to do. And if you're in the wrong place, move. Shay, you said self-reflection. I say just get to high stepping, because we don't have time for the self-reflection. You need to put your feet in the ground and get to moving, because our future depends on it. And we have to come. We're a community, y'all. We all we got. This is proven.
We are.
Because if we still
you got extra time,
we would have gotten mastered. Huh? What'd you say?
You got extra time on the box, so I want extra time on the box.
You can definitely have it.
We keep saying teachers are underpaid. We say teachers are underpaid, but it's the public that pays the teachers. There's a budget process for both school systems and governments. And so, you know, while we're saying teachers are underpaid, and parents and those who are concerned, who may not even be parents anymore, we have a responsibility to speak up instead of complaining about, if they get more money, then our taxes are going to go up. Where else can we make such a important investment but in the classroom? And so these are qualified teachers, and they're trying not to have the unqualified in the classroom just because of money. Now, their benefits are pretty good. Their benefits are pretty good, but still, compared to other government workers, teachers are not where they should be for all the preparation and all of the love and the time that they put in with our children. So let's advocate. We control the budgets, not the government. The people control the budget.
We're going to have to come back with that. Black people versus the budget.
Yeah.
Well, let me give this plug. On the 26th of August, the Afro is is co-sponsoring, along with the Baltimore Business Journal, a panel called Equity in Education. Equity in Education. And we have some really strong panelists, including Dr. Sonia Santelises, the CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools, the president of Coppin State University, and some other folk who are going to be on to talk about equity in education, and including workforce development. And so mark your calendars for Thursday, August the 26th, and it is in the morning. I will give the exact time next week. Or go to afro.com. Go to afro.com.
Afro.com, y'all. Thank you for tuning into the Chicken Box, ladies. I know y'all got to get prepared. Thank you for sharing your passion. I even, it makes me want to go hard. Not for teaching, but just go hard for.
Come on over.
Yeah, and black men, we need you in the schools. I mean, I heard that they accelerate fast through the system for those out there who are being led to teach. So,
but you can volunteer too, black men. Volunteer in schools.
Coach, come around the kids, help out. They need us. All right.
We did.
Until next week. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
We got all the Deltas. See you, Deltas, and everybody else out there. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.